everybody! Today we're going to be reading The Lumberjack's Beard by Duncan Beedie. Big Jim Hickory was a lumberjack. He lived by the forest in a little log cabin. He had burly shoulders and a big, bristly beard. Every morning he did limbering up exercises. It's very important to limber up if you're a lumberjack. After a hearty breakfast of pancakes and maple syrup, Jim slung his trusty axe over his burly shoulder and headed out into the forest. Chop, choppity chop went Jim's axe. Timber! Echoing through the valley as he felled tree after tree after tree. After a long day of swinging, whacking, cleaving, and hacking, Jim headed back to his cabin. That evening, when he was just about to go to bed, he heard a peck, peck, peckety peck at the door. Jim looked down to see a small and very angry bird. "I had just built a new nest in my tree," shrieked the bird, "and you chopped it down." Jim scratched his chin. Then he had an idea. "I suppose you could move into my beard," he said. "Very well then," said the bird, and in it flew. The next morning, Jim woke up earlier than usual due to the birds chirping at the crack of dawn. He did his limbering up exercises, got dressed, and ate his breakfast, with a little help from the new tenant in his beard. Jim's next job was to strip all the branches and leaves from the tree trunks and burn them in a big bonfire. After a long day of chopping, snapping, burning, and crackling, Jim trudged back to his cabin for a well-earned rest. No sooner had he put away his axe than he heard a noise at the door. Scratch, scratch, scratchity, scratch. He looked down to see a very angry porcupine. "I needed those leaves and pine needles to make a cozy shelter, but you burned them. Where am I going to live now?" snapped the porcupine. Jim thought and scratched his chin. "Well," he said, "I suppose you could move into my beard." He bent down and the porcupine crawled in. The next morning, Jim woke even earlier and attempted to do his limbering up exercises. He looked in the mirror and scratched his chin. Yow! He got porcupine quills in his fingers. He tried to eat his breakfast, but lost his appetite when he noticed bird poop on his shirt. Jim's job that day was to float all the tree trunks down the river to the lumber yard. One by one, he rolled the logs into the fast-flowing water, and after a hard day of lugging, splashing, rolling, and crashing, Jim staggered back to his cabin. Thump, thump, thumpity thump went his door. He looked down to see a very angry beaver on his doorstep. "I spent all day building my dam, and it got smashed to bits by those logs you threw in the river," it snarled. Without a word, Jim picked up the beaver and put it in his beard. Between the birds chirping, the porcupines prickling, and the beavers thwomping, Jim didn't get much sleep that night. He was too tired to do his limbering up exercises in the morning, and the beaver's thwomping tail knocked his pancakes all over the floor. "That's it!" cried Jim. "I can't take it anymore. You all have to move out today." "But where will we live?" cried the animals. As Jim scratched his chin, he had a brilliant idea. He went to his bathroom, took out a razor, and began to shave off his big, bristly beard. Then he took the hair and piled it on his porch, and the bird, the porcupine, and the beaver all moved into their big, bristly new den. That night, Jim slept better than he had for a long time. He woke up and did some particularly vigorous limbering up exercises and put on a fresh plaid shirt. Then he made an enormous tower of pancakes and maple syrup. Jim looked out the window at the bare ground where the forest used to be and scratched his now stubbly chin. Then he had another brilliant idea. Jim took his shovel and dug hole after hole after hole, and planted tree after tree after tree. Jim's beard grew back over time. The trees took quite a bit longer, but It was worth the wait. The end.